Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Great. Make sure you guys are awake. It's been an amazing couple of days, hasn't it? And it's been challenging, it's been insightful, it's been fun. We had some amazing speakers. We had the eloquent Matt Kramer. We had the very inspiring conversation by Roger Bolton. Thank you. We had thought-provoking session with Steve Smith. We had insightful Sam Harrop. Very entertaining, very educational Tim Hanai. And now you got a Brazilian. So it's hard to follow. I'll do my best. I'll do my best for Sauvignon Blanc, and I'll do my best for this wonderful region. Sauvignon Blanc, because it brought us together. Gave me the opportunity to catch up with a few friends, a few familiar faces, meet some new people, learn, laugh, and it's been wonderful. And I'll also do my best for the region because I really felt really welcome here. People always smiling, people who are making our coffees with a great smile in the morning, people who are driving the buses. I really feel welcome. So thank you very, very much indeed. And thank you for the organizers. For me, it's an honor to be here. I think it's been fantastic. And I'll do my very best, as I said. And as much as I respect all the speakers, as much as I like everything that's been said, there is someone more important. And that is the consumer. And this is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about consumer preferences. Even she did so with this lovely smile. Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, what I'm going to be talking about is consumer preferences. Is a study that was a collaboration between Lallemand, St. Clair Winery in New Zealand, with the support of the Institute of Masters of Wines. And this study was carried out by a second-year student called Sarah Benson, who is a buyer for a co-op in the UK. She is sure to be a Master of Wine. She's a very clever lady. And I'm here, Sam Harrop and myself, we both worked together to organize this study. And it involves maximizing, we've been talking so much about site potential and so on. This involves very much maximizing site expression, magnifying all those wonderful sense of place that Sam mentioned in the first place. So we developed together with Lallemand, who the suitable protocols for very specific sites. And more important, once we knew that, we wanted to understand what the consumer really wants to drink. That is crucial. So we assessed that. Also, we asked journalists, so we were able to explore and to compare and contrast the opinions of journalists also. So what we did, we divided 4 very specific styles of wine. We look into different vineyard sites using the knowledge of Heather Stewart. Is Heather here? Can see? There she is. So using the knowledge of Heather and St. Clair on their sites, and using Lallemand's knowledge of the microorganism to magnify the site selection. And I'm going to run you through very quickly on what we did. So we had 4 very specific styles. The first one is a tropical Sauvignon Blanc style. And this specific style came from a vineyard in Dillon's Point. It's a site very near the sea. It's about 3 to 4 kilometers near the sea, where ripening is quite, it takes a long time. It's quite a fertile site. And what Heather finds in this specific site, it has a lot of tiles. So the aim of this protocol was to exacerbate or to magnify the tiolic expression. And the protocol we use here, we use an yeast called B-thiol, which is very It gives very low sulfur, very low level of hydrogen sulfide and acetaldehyde, so it really promotes the thiolic expression. We use Go Ferment, protection evolution, which is a nutrient to the must. We use Optimum White, which is an inactive yeast that is very high in glutathione and polysaccharides, and also helps to express the thiols. We use Stimulus Sauvignon Blanc, which is an amino nitrogen nutrient to optimize volatile thiols. Fermate O to ensure a steady fermentation. And Pure Lose Longevities, which is inactivated yeast with a high capacity to uptake oxygen. And use it racking and also for storage and for transport. So that is the Sauvignon Blanc style, or tropical style. And here we review lovely notes of passion fruits, grapefruit, and so on. Then we move on to a herbaceous style. This vineyard is very near the previous vineyard. It's only about 3 to 4 kilometers northwest of the previous vineyard. This side here, the terroir is very, very similar. Very similar. It's just a question of the vines are a little bit different. They're a little bit higher. The canopies are 2 meters high. And there's a little bit more shading. And here we have more pyrazines. And this wine was picked 1 week later. And one thing I didn't mention to you guys, it was not microvinification. This is all very large tanks. This is 36 tons. So it's not micro, it's a commercial study. The protocol for the herbaceous style will use Lallemand R2 yeast, which is a yeast that was isolated and sauteed by Brian Crozer. And we use very similar products than the previous protocol. So we use Go Ferment, Optimum White, Fermate O, and Pure Lose Longevity. And here, in terms of styles, we found much more green profile of the fruits. So we got tomato leaf, capsicum, and a very herbaceous style of wine to contrast the previous one, which is much more tropical. Thirdly, we went for a citrus style, much more elegant, much more restrained. The vineyard site here is a historical path of a braided river. This was machine picked. This is the beginning of the Waihope Valley on river terraces, a more sunny site, quite protected from the winds, cooler site. The soil are lower vigor, free draining, and there's some river stones closer to the surface. So the wine itself is much more restrained, much more mineral. And what we find was less thiol, less methoxypyrazine, but much more minerality. And in terms of the protocol here, we use a yeast called Cross Evolution, which is a yeast that was isolated in Stellenbosch. It's a very strong fermenter. It does very well in a low nutrient must. It improves the texture of the wine itself. And here what we find in terms of the profile, what Heather described was citrus fruits, orange pith, riverstone, gravel. So you got a real minerality on this specific wine. Thirdly, barrel-fermented wine. And St. Clair's been doing that since 2013, and they've been refining the protocols. And what we got here is the vineyard from Dillon's Point in Lower Wairau. The site is at sea level, close to the ocean, much cooler soil here. It was the late block to be picked on the 20th of April. High water table. The soils are they are poorer. The vines here are on 4-cane VSP, and the rows are not north to south. They are on a sort of 45-degree angle, and that gives us slightly more herbaceous tones. Everything that we've seen so far was machine-picked. This was hand-picked to decrease. This is all from 2017 vintage, by the way. which is very challenging. And this was picked to select select grape to less disease, also to decrease the level of thiols. And the protocol here was, it was whole bunch press with the press cut at 600 liters per ton, while the other ones were sort of about 780 liters per ton. Potassium beta-bisulfite, very light settling for 12 hours, and then it was put into barrels using Lallemand CY 3079, which is a Burgundy East, strong fermenter, and especially used for barrel fermented and wines that go into Suli. And what we got here are wines which are more stone fruit, more struck matches, tamarillo, and spices. So those are the 4 different styles of wine. And what we did, had to taste it, and send it to us in UK. Sam Harrop and I would taste it, and the wines were remarkably different. They really expressed what we wanted in terms of those styles. One wine was really tropical, one was really citrus, and so on and so forth. So we said, okay, Heather knows their site, St. Clair's knows their site. We use the protocol we could understand. The wines are clearly different. We want to know what the consumer thought. But before that, we didn't want our opinion. We actually sent these wines to analysis. And we did find that the tropical wine really was the most exuberant, the more pronounced, had much more aroma intensity, followed by the herbaceous, followed by the citrus fruit, and obviously the barrel fermented was the less aromatic. This was an analysis done by Niceus in Montpellier. And then we look into the compounds themselves, look at the thiols, 3-MH and 3-MHA. So you see here 3-MH, notes of grapefruit and passion fruit. The herbaceous was the most prominent, followed by the tropical, and citrus and barrel fermented had less thiols, as we expected. In terms of the 3-MHA, which give us notes of passion fruit, boxwood, and sweat, you see here they're much lower intensity, but again, tropical fruit and the herbaceous wines had slightly elevated levels. Then we look into the 4-MMP, and you see here the citrus fruit had by far the highest intensity with 50 nanograms per liter, followed by pyrazine. Look at pyrazine, and then obviously the herbaceous wines had the highest level of pyrazine, and there was no, both the barrel fermented and the citrus fruits were below the threshold. After that, we look at an ethyl phenyl acetate, which give notes of rose, floral notes, sometimes a little bit of honey, and you see here the wine that had most of this character was the barrel fermented wine. And just hold that, remember that there will be a little thing at the end about this compound. After that, we look at the terpenes, notes of floral notes, roses, lychees, and here, barrel fermented wine had the most prominent levels. Look at the esters, all different types of esters, isomyl acetate, notes of pear, notes of banana, and you see here the tropical wines had the highest levels, and so on and so forth. So those are the 4 wines we tasted. They were different. We sent it for analysis. They were clearly, scientifically, the methodology shows they are different. So the important thing is, what does the consumer think about it? So we look into a large geographic spread in the UK, not only London. We look into Edinburgh, York, Leeds, Birmingham, it's not here, but Birmingham, Manchester, and so on and so forth, and we asked customers. There were engaged customers. There were people from, there were cooperative shoppers. There were also people who were from wine schools and wine evening events, so people slightly more engaged, people who spend a little bit more money in Sauvignon Blanc. aside from that, we ask for 24 journalists for their opinion, people from all over UK, including Jamie, who is here in the audience, and to describe the wines. What we did was to ask them, we gave them a 9-scale hedonistic scale to see how much they liked their wines. And we gave them 20 descriptors so they could select the most dominant. And also we gave them freedom to say, if those descriptors are not here, what else do you think you're finding in the wines? So in terms of aromas, asking the consumer, the wines they prefer, it was a more subtle wine. It was a wines with citrus fruit, followed by the tropical fruit, followed by the herbaceous wines, and then a biofermented wine. So a clear preference for the aroma was for the wines that were more elegant. And that was compatible with what the journalists liked. They also prefer the wines with more citrus fruits, followed by the biofermented, curiously, which came last on the consumer preference, followed by the herbaceous and tropical notes. Then we're asking for the flavor profile. And the consumer preferred the more tropical style, followed by the citrus fruits. This was very, very close, very close, because it was done by a mean score, and the tropical was 6.42, and the citrus was 6.35. So very, very close in terms of preference for the consumer between the tropical and the citrus fruits. And the journalists prefer the citrus fruits, followed by the tropical, and then herbaceous and barrel afterwards. In terms of mouthfeel and freshness, what they felt in their mouth in terms of freshness, the consumer again preferred the citrus fruits, followed by the tropical, herbaceous, and the biofermented. We asked 247 consumers, so it's statistically relevant, and 24 journalists, as I mentioned earlier. So overall, you see a pretty strong case for citrus fruit in terms of preference. So we asked, okay, what are the main conclusions here? And even I was a bit surprised with this. But the first thing is intensity did not correlate with popularity. So we all think New Zealand, all we consumer wants is the powerful, intense, exuberant style of wine, and that was not the case. There is a broad range of preference for Sauvignon Blanc. There is the opportunity to target different segments of the market. I think it's vital to gain knowledge on how to fulfill the consumer preference in different sectors and also in different price points. One thing also that came out of this study is as the consumer is not less able to taste than the professional, whatever the professional was saying, the consumer was saying pretty much a similar thing. They were picking up the similar flavor profiles. In some cases, the consumer was actually better than the journalist. I'll give you one example. They are the ones who actually pick phenyl ethyl with a floral note on a barrel-fermented wine. No journalist picked it out. So they are not less able than the journalist. But they do use simpler words. They use more adjectives. They use words like fresh and fruity and sweet and subtle. So they're more slightly simple words. So one lesson here for us is maybe to consider the terminology when we communicate with consumers, either verbally or through back labels. And so we were encouraged by those results. I think we have a lot to learn between the production side, what we're doing in the vineyards, how we're magnifying the sites, and what the consumer wants to drink. So we are doing further studies in Sauvignon Blanc. I think it would be great to see what the different markets think about the styles of Sauvignon Blanc. Tim mentioned Coca-Cola is 109 grams of sugar in the US, which I'm not going to argue with him. But if you cross the border in Mexico, it's less sweeter. It's less sweet than US. So there are different countries like different things. If you go to Greece, Coca-Cola is sweeter. If you go to Czech Republic, Coca-Cola has a lower degree of carbon dioxide. So we have different palates. And I think it would be nice to do this study in different countries, look at maybe different grape varieties, or there are many more studies to be done, and we're sure we're going to carry on doing that. So thank you very much for your attention.